So welcome to 1.3. In this lesson, we're finally going to start subtracting negatives. The rule for subtracting negatives is that you always change it to adding the opposite. So there's the warm-up. The warm-up is a review of 1.1 and 1.2, so everyone should be able to do it. Go ahead, pause the video. So negative 26 and positive 26 are opposites. Notice they are not equal. We did not put an equal sign between them. The opposite of 15 is negative 15. The opposite of negative 29 is positive 29. Notice that the opposite of 0, by the way, I skipped over this in our lesson, right, is 0. You don't ever put negative 0 or positive 0. 0 is not positive. It's not negative. The word for it is neutral. So in the first lesson, we learned that the inverse property of addition says you add opposites, you get 0. Now, once again, there's some problems from first and second grade. Why is that there? Because I'm trying to show you a pattern. So it turns out that 26 minus 26 is also 0. 22 plus negative 15, there are 7 extra positives. 22 minus 15, also 7. So I do this a lot in the warm-ups. There's a pattern there, right? Both sides are the same. Let's see if that continues. 4 plus negative 29 is negative 25. So what is 4 minus 29? It is not positive 25, right? If you try to take 29 away from 4, it's too small, right? It's 25 too small. And so 4 minus 29 is negative 25. You cannot switch around the order of subtraction, right? Like when you add numbers, it can be in either order. Not true with subtraction. So notice, these 3 answers were the same as these 3 answers. And the reason is the name of the lesson. The name of the lesson says subtracting, like subtracting 26, is the same always as adding the opposite, right? The opposite of subtracting 26 is the same as adding negative 26. It's opposite, as long as the first number is the same. Subtracting 15, same as adding negative 15. Subtracting 29, always the same as adding negative 29. So owing someone 15 is the same as having 15 taking it away. And we'll talk about that. So we're just going to rewrite this. Rewrite the subtractions as adding the opposite. So read this problem to yourself. Hopefully you said x minus negative 10. Right? Notice the minus symbol and the negative symbol are exactly the same size. Some textbooks make them different sizes, but that's actually not a thing. You know the first one's a minus an operation, and the second one's a negative because of where they are. Right? And just like when we don't like to have positives and negatives next to each other, we don't like minuses and negatives next to each other, so we put parentheses there. But it turns out that that will always be the same as adding the opposite. So it'll be the same as adding 10. It will. X minus negative 10 will always be the same as adding 10. Now this one's a little trickier. Rewrite that as adding the opposite. So we have x here. This becomes adding. But that's not negative 7, that's positive 7, right? This is where people get confused because we don't write the positive symbol there. But x minus 7 is the same as adding negative 7. Look at the two different columns, they're different. You change the subtraction to adding. You change the second number to its opposite. Okay, so let's try a couple more of these. So this is the same as 6 plus 10. Now we're just rewriting them here. We're not evaluating. On the homework, you will evaluate them. But right now, we're just rewriting them. Now try that one. So the first number will always stay the same, no matter what. Doesn't matter, positive, negative, x, doesn't matter. Stays exactly the same. You change that to adding. That becomes its opposite. So negative 5 minus 7, same as negative 5 plus negative 7. Negative 4 minus negative 3, same as negative 4 plus 3. You add the opposite. There are two things to do every single time. 10 minus 18. 10 stays the same. That becomes its opposite. 8, that becomes plus because minus becomes plus. That becomes its opposite. So notice 10 minus 18 is not 8. It's negative 8. So just to show you the answers to these last two, although you don't have to put them, right? The left side, when we get to the test, everyone will get right. It's this side that people, the right side, that people mess up. Because, and why is it harder? Because we don't write these little positive symbols there to see to make the opposite. But that's what's going on. Do these last two. So this is the same as negative 4 plus 9. And this is the same as negative 5 plus negative 3. The opposite of 3 is negative 3. This one is also negative 8. This one is positive 5. So we're still rewriting. So what's the rule? First number stays the same. Doesn't matter. Then you're going to change both of these to adding the opposite. Please do that. So minus 9 becomes plus negative 9. Minus 2 becomes plus negative 2. Try the next one. The first number stays the same. Then that becomes plus 3. You add the opposite. That's why the lesson is called that. This becomes add 8. Right? So notice, sometimes when you do this, right, you get a first grade type problem when you add the opposite. Sometimes, though, you get a whole bunch of negatives. Negative 5 plus negative 9, negative 14 plus negative 2, negative 16. Now again, I didn't ask you to evaluate. I only asked you to rewrite. So that's all I need to see on your paper. All right, so now you're evaluating. So when you do your homework, I want to see both steps. And it says that on the homework. So you're going to show me that you know how to add the opposite. And then you're going to evaluate it and tell me the answer. That's what your homework should look like. Right? Minus negative 21 is always the same as adding 21. Next. Subtracting negative 3, same as adding 3. Negative 23 plus 3, negative 20. This is usually the one that messes people up, right? This is negative 3, right? You cannot switch this around. These are not, you can't go 35 minus 32. 35 minus 32, yeah, is 3. But there are 3 extra negatives in this problem. So that is negative 100. Taking away 54 from negative 46 is the same as adding negative 54. That's the same as adding 2. That's the same as adding 15. And I'm getting what? 20 plus 15, which is 35. Eight stays the same. That becomes plus 2. That becomes plus negative 7. Right? Minus 7 becomes plus negative 7. Add the opposite. Two things every time. So then you can do it in any order you want. Notice that once it's adding, you can do things any order you want. That's called commutative property. When it's subtracting, you can't do things in any order you want. And so this is positive 3. Try the next one. First number stays the same. That becomes add the opposite of 6, negative 6. That becomes add the opposite of negative 4, 4. Negative 1 plus negative 6, negative 7. Negative 7 plus 4, negative 3. There is no commutative property of subtraction, so do both these problems. 9 minus 2 is from first or second grade is 7. Now notice, if you change it to add the opposite, you get the same number. Do you need to do that on a problem from second grade? No, you do not. But it works. A rule is a rule in math, and it will always work, but it's just unnecessary. But 2 minus 9, not 7. Right? There is no commutative property because 2 minus 9 is the same as 2 plus negative 9, negative 7. It turns out when you switch a subtraction problem around, you get the opposite answer. When you switch switch an adding problem around, you get the same answer. When you switch a subtraction problem around, you get the opposite answer. So that's a nice shortcut, right? If 8 minus 6 is 2, if you switch it around, you have to get the opposite. You could write it out. 6 plus negative 8 is negative 2. Again, we're in 8th grade. We're doing this with algebra, but it's not any harder. So x minus 2 will never equal 2 minus x unless x was 2. Then you get 0 both times. But you cannot switch around subtraction. All right, so we're at practice. So notice the first two say rewrite. So that's all you need to do. The rest of them say evaluate. So you rewrite it and also you give me the evaluation. This is what your homework should look like, right? Negative 18 plus negative 12 is the same as subtracting 12. Negative 30. Please, this is usually the type of ones where the mistakes are, right? Everyone gets the one on the left correct. Right, subtracting 4, same as adding negative 4. So those add up to 25. Right. Please pause these videos and do them before I give the answer, especially in the practice. That way you know if you understand it. Right? You didn't have to evaluate them. If you have minus negative 18, that's always the same as adding 18. So A and C have to have the same answer, which is, I think, what, 33 on both of these. This one is negative 3. So the A and C are equivalent. They equal the same amount. Thanks very much.